Wanted to check their work, he explained. He'd chosen to spot check this area because this particular pasture wasn't in use for the next 3 weeks, when some new horses would be moved here. If someone wanted to go the lazy route, then this would have been the place to do a half-assed job. Thankfully, the job had been full-assed, so he wouldn't have to chew anyone out, or fire someone. "Either you're 2 weeks early, or this is about something else," Wyatt commented, still studying her, still waiting. No need for him to clarify the 2 weeks comment. They both knew, down to the hour, the anniversary that they anti-celebrated each year. In 13 days and 9 hours, it would be the birthday of the child they'd made together. Their daughter, who'd been born nearly 17 years ago when Nola and he had been 16. A daughter in DNA only. That was something Wyatt had had to repeat to himself like a mantra over the years. It was the easiest way to put a pause on the whole eating away at him deal. Yeah, they'd made the kid, and Nola had pushed all 6 pounds and 11 ounces of her out into the world after a long, grueling labor. But within minutes, they'd had to give her to someone who stood 100% chance of doing a better job with her than they could have. Which wasn't exactly a high standard. They'd both been high school juniors back then, and he'd still been 8 days away from his 17th birthday. Nola had been a month away from hers. And Wyatt had had less than $500 to his name. The only job he could have gotten was something at minimum wage. Despite her high-born Parkman surname, Nola had been in the same proverbial boat. So they'd made the only choice they could, and that was to give her up. It was because of that 100% belief that someone else could do a better job than them that Nola and he had made a pact. They had agreed they would never look for the girl or her adoptive parents. No ancestry DNA tests to see if she popped up as a match. No peeks at adoption connection sites where there were posts of children looking for bio-parents and vice versa. Added to that, the only time Nola and he had allowed themselves to talk about the DNA only was on the birthday. 1 day a year of rubbing their noses in the penance that was silently simmering and jabbing there the other 364 days of the year. Sometimes they hadn't been able to do that penance face to face, like when Nola had been in Italy training to make her glass, but they'd still managed some long phone or email conversations. No matter the format, though, the mood had always been miserable. "I'll be back in 2 weeks for that," Nola murmured, scooping up the basket and heading to the lone tree in this particular part of the pasture. A sprawling oak he'd named 9 months later. Because it had likely been where he had gotten Nola pregnant all those years ago. Of course, it could have also happened at one of the other comfort-lacking places where they'd had a go at each other. Teen hormones were a greedy, insatiable son of a bitch, and sometimes a gift that just kept on giving. But Nola and he had paid 1 billion times over for their lack of self-control and a discount condom that obviously hadn't been worth squat. Because of that, Wyatt had never had much faith in condoms, or any other form of birth control, for that matter. He'd also decided he had never wanted to risk getting another girl or woman pregnant. Never. So he'd had a vasectomy when he'd turned 21. While Honeybee cropped some grass and moseyed over to Moonlight, the gelding that Wyatt had ridden out to the pasture, Nola took a thin blanket from the basket, spread it out under the shade of the tree. A shade that still didn't block off much of the heat. It was August, when the sweltering Texas heat could be a son of a bitch, too. He'd been right about her choice of sandwiches, but she'd also brought along at least a half-dozen little bags of her favorite cheddar cheese and onion potato chips. And beer. A 6-pack. Since Nola didn't drink beer, that meant she'd felt he might need to be on his way to getting drunk to deal with whatever news she'd come to deliver. "Just tell me why you're here," he insisted, popping the top on one of the beers. She didn't even hesitate. Today is August.